All right, everyone. Once again, I am joined by the unflappable Douglas Simpson. I love that word, flappable. You cannot flap this man. So he, former at 16, was a full-on commie, socialist, whatever term you use. I'm sure there's lots of different terms that one would use at that age. But now he is a conservative activist. We had a great conversation within the last two episodes. On his story and his evolution, and I really encourage you to check that out and make sure to follow along with all the other amazing interviews I'm having by subscribing. So, Douglas, you have a beautiful insight into the minds of young people in America who not only are the future, but also are very much directing the steamboat of the American political system. And right now, Bernie Sanders, who you supported and voted for during the last election cycle when he was running for president, do you think he still got the juice? Do you think that he's going to take the charge? If not, who do you think will win that primary at this point?
That is a very, very difficult question. I've watched the last two debates, making sure, and I'm a guy that's big on input. I just want to know what's going on, keep up with the knowledge, and it's very difficult. He's got juice in himself, of course. I mean, the guy's one that really kind of kickstarted the mainstreaming of socialism and dialogue in mainstream media. But at the same time, there are 25 people right now are running for the Democratic primary. I mean, you've got a huge variety. So it's really, at this point, you really can't say. It could be Joe Biden that wins. It could be Bernie Sanders that gets nomination. It could be Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, It's really. Yeah, I think it's right now very up in the air, but it's
percentage-wise. If you were going to rank them by percentage, who would you say has the best and second best? Biden has like a 50% chance, and what would you say?
Well, it kind of depends on two factors. I'm going to probably do two ranks. One is establishment moderates managed to, I should say the moderates within the party managed to go and get the hold and sit the primary. If the radicals get, it'll be completely different. So with the moderates, I think if the top two with the moderates would probably be, I'd say, Joe Biden, although I could see Tulsi Gabbard as well potentially, where she could possibly overcome. They tend to be a little more moderate. Tulsi Gabbard, she wins people over with foreign policy. She wants to get out of the unending wars we have in the Middle East. On top of that, I mean, just the absolutely brutal smackdown of Kamala Harris in the second primary was rather impressive. I mean, it was brutal. And some of my friends who are moderate Democrats, they've said they could see themselves voting for Joe Biden because everybody else is crazy. But at the same time, it's a matter of, at this time, are the radicals going to be able to overtake? That's what all hinges on. If the radicals don't overtake, I think Joe Biden most likely will get the nomination. If the radicals do overtake, it could be any variety. I mean, it's really up in the air at that point of how hard they want to go, because some of them might have cross the lines appeal. I know there are some guys who are more libertarian or anarcho-capitalists that are big on Andrew Yang.
Even though he's like the opposite of anarcho-capitalism by expanding government. Fine.
Well, politics tends to make very strange bedfellows. You have some libertarians that support Tulsi Gabbard because she wants to go and pull out of the Middle East. That's a big win for them. And so even in politics, I don't tend to really speak on candidates, whether I think they're good or bad. I mean, I'm going to have a grudge against everyone running for office. I mean, it doesn't matter who it is. It's always something we're going to disagree on. But you have that in politics where you're not going to be able to get everything you want. It's always going to be a compromise somewhere. There's going to be some good, some bad. It's a matter of how extreme is the bad or how minimal is the good. So, I mean, even like personally, when it comes to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, hard to the left, criminal justice reform, I have some agreements with her on, which could be one area. Everything else I don't agree with her on, though. When it comes to a lot of her economic policies, nationalization, I don't. But when it comes to a lot of criminal justice stuff she'll talk about, there's some commonality there.
So
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No. As a person who's worked on a campaign, I'm sure you've worked on many more than I have. Generally, what every campaign comes down to is the amount of voters you touched, just by reminding them to go and vote, and your overall message. Doesn't matter if you have the perfect message if no one hears it. It doesn't matter if you're able to touch everybody a bajillion times and nobody likes your message. If you have a good enough plan on both those fronts, you will win. That's the key to victory. So I guess, do you think that let's just put all Warren, Sanders, Booker, all these different people into the radical category, and then we'll get Joe Biden and all the other people, Delaney and all these other people, in the moderate category. So you got radical and moderate against Donald Trump. Based on your networks and your relationships in the left of center world, do you think that they have the potential to knock on enough doors to beat Trump's message and his ability to touch people?
Do I think so? Basically, do I think that there's a chance that Trump will be defeated in 2020 by a Democrat? Is that the question?
Well, I mean, most people are talking about comparing the message of the moderates, comparing the message of the radicals to the message of Donald Trump. I'm asking if we ignore the message and just look at their ability to touch people by knocking on doors, phone banking, things like that, signs, whatever. Who do you think has the advantage?
Between the moderates and radicals, I'd say the moderates.
Okay.
We've seen through history, moderates tend to be able to pull more from the opposite side than radicals. Radicals can be more isolating. So that's where the difficulty will come in. Is if it's the radicals that get the platform, there's no shot in hell that there'll be a victory. Trump will be reelected in 2020 just because you have such a radical platform. You're going to have some people that will vote for that just out of spite for the president. But then other people say it's not worth it to spite what's the old saying? To pluck my eye in spite of my face, something like that.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. Go and get rid of one evil, replace it with one perceived evil with another even greater perceived evil.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's simply how it is. People are going to weigh it. Some people weigh the odds. Well, I may have some terrible policy a few years, but Trump is out of office. Some people may say, well, Trump may stay in office, but I'm not going to have these terrible policies. Some people are going to weigh it differently. And so I think a moderate message would have a much better chance. But even then, it will require quite a few environmental factors to come into play as well. I mean, you can have the right message, but at the wrong time.
Sure. In terms of resources, though, which side do you think could muster enough volunteers, enough boots on the ground? Which side do you think has the best of the three?
Between the moderates, the radicals, and then the Trump's group.
Right, that's correct.
I'd almost say Trump's group would probably be far more capable on the ground. You will have the moderates within the Democratic Party. I'd say it probably had the least ground effort. We saw that back in 2016. How many Hillary and I don't even remember his name right now.
Bernie?
Her VP pick.
Oh, he's a senator in Virginia. Tim Kaine.
Thank you. But they're right there. Honestly, but absolutely unmemorable. You can't go back to that. And that's where a lot of it would be, is there'd be issues with name recognition. Joe Biden has fantastic name recognition, having been the former vice president of the United States. But even then, Hillary Clinton had fantastic name recognition, but still lost. Whereas the radicals, they'll have quite a few people that would come out and volunteer. They'd be what would make them call superstars, and where they're putting lots of time and effort in these issues they care about. And that's why they're willing to go out and knock doors and make phone calls, but there's still a smaller sliver within the party. And then you still have a sizable portion of people who are kind of really don't put too much into which way it goes. They kind of just follow which way it goes. So if it goes in a little more a radical way, they might go that way. If it's more moderate, they go moderate. Where they just kind of vote for whoever's on the ballot, because not everybody is going to be involved in the political process to the point where they're volunteering campaigns. But the Trump campaign, you have a lot of people who never voted before, and 20, 30 years coming over and voting for President Trump. You have a lot you have the rallies are a huge example of outreach. You just had one down in Cincinnati, Ohio, huge turnout.
Yeah.
So you have that advantage. So he has that advantage there, where I think that'll come in huge play in 2020. He's far more organized now than he's probably far more organized right now than he was back in 2015 when he announced. There wasn't really as much of a ground game then because he wasn't known as a political figure. But then he is able to immediately go and muster one up. And even with having to change plans so quickly, they're still able to win. 2020, he'll be far more organized. And so mix that in with the fact that he's a very energized base and that over time population has grown and the economy is performing very well. That's a very weak platform right now for the Democrats to hit on. They can keep saying it's the economy that is working just the wealthy, but that's very hard to go and discuss. It's really hard to go and make that point because we have a record low unemployment. There's a lot of places that are hiring right now but can't find anybody. And so it's very hard to go and say that they're only going to hit a small number of people in the economic messaging. What they need to focus on trying to hit policies where they know they can really go and do some damage. Economy is one that almost always turns elections. Yep. So that's already against them. They need to focus on other areas. They can't really, it's kind of hard to say exactly where they could focus on. They could try to keep it go. They can keep talking about gun control and the like, and they can talk about healthcare. Those are the two ones they have a strong tie on. But even then,
any from what I can tell, any big proposal against guns, they lose. Yeah, I mean, that's the Second Amendment really is the third rail for the Democrats because, I mean, the right to bear arms is so popular. Anytime, I mean, they've tried proposing bills in Massachusetts and California where they ban, I think it's semi-automatic weapons, and they both failed miserably. So I disagree with you that they can go up against gun violence, like they can act as though that's an issue campaigning on. I think that'll work against them. What do you think about immigration?
Immigration, that one will be very touchy. I can't really go and say how Anna would help or hurt them. I think it could help them with mobilizing within the radicals. Especially if it depends on how hard they go with immigration policy. If it's still fairly moderate, I think it could definitely be a winning policy for them. There's a huge, we know there's a huge crisis right now. We have significant issues. DACA is something that has not been resolved. We do not have a legislative issue for DACA. It's still just an executive action. We have a lot of uncertainties. So that could be a strong one, but it's a matter of how they play it as well. And the guns, I think we're going to disagree. I don't think that's going to have their win, but I think if they play it right in certain areas, they might be able to win. They might be able to win some people over, especially if they do. Especially with the mass shootings going on.
I see.
If they target a lot of families with young kids alike that are very fearful, that'll be
if they localize it, basically, you're saying.
Yeah, If they localize it, that would probably be a very strong strategy for them there. They need to be. It's a matter of being personable. I mean, one of the greatest currencies today now is going to be personal interaction. I mean, that is the make or break it. Half of all Americans consider themselves lonely. If you're able to make personal connections with somebody as a candidate, and you're able to do it through the digital sphere, that's impressive. That's very important. So it's almost a matter of not just the issues, but also being personable and not having a robotic laugh, things like that, not coming off as scripted, but being human, even making a few mistakes on stage. Calling this, okay, they're a human being. They don't see themselves being better than me. They make mistakes and they get embarrassed by it. So showing that humanity will be a benefit for them. But immigration could be an issue they could touch on. Education is going to be the big one.
Okay.
I think that's where education is going to be a huge hit. A lot of public school districts are failing or in danger of failing across the country. Student loan debt is ballooning. Tuitions are rising. The debt that some of these universities themselves hold, not the students, the university as an organization, the debt they hold, some of the debts they hold are incredible, especially in public universities. And so I think they could go. I could see them talking a lot about education, both K through 12 and post secondary. So I think immigration, education, probably the strongest they can go on, and then some localized field play with Second Amendment, like and gun control.
Okay. What do you think that the Democrats' best line of attack is? Like healthcare, I mean, I would assume the economy is like the worst thing to go after because Trump is clearly, doing well with the economy. Why should we fix it? But what do you think is their best line of attack?
Best line of attack. Their base is going to be mostly millennials, Gen Z, maybe some Gen Xers. That's where they have the advantages. They have the youth for the most part. Education is going to be a strong one. One of the things that gives Elizabeth Warren a very strong advantage is she's one of the first people that started advocating for forgiving student loan debt and student loan debt. I think she's also one of the first to start doing public education besides Bernie Sanders, where post-secondary and 4 universities will be free. I think she was one of the early advocates as well. Well, education is a strong one. That's how they can win over millennials and Gen Z. Discussion on education, forgiving student loan debt. That will be one of their strong plays.
Interesting.
To add into that, K through 12 as well, if they want to hit families with younger kids. Because, like I said, like we were talking about, public schools are starting to fail. A lot of public school systems are starting to fail. And so they talk about K through 12, and they're able to put a spin on it that benefits their campaign and say, this is how I will fix it, then I think they'd be able to win people over. But even then, it's going to be hard for them to get a stand with some people. I mean, it's a matter of if they go radical, they have no chance.
Right.
I mean, it's going to be way too outlandish for some people. If they stick to moderates, they have a far better chance of winning, but they won't get a lot of those hard radical policies the hard left is going to want. And like we saw at the DNC in 2016, that might result in a lot of division.
Well, we're running out of time, but Douglas, I really appreciate this very deep insight into the potential of what will lay forward in this grand soap opera we call politics.
It really is soap opera.
Well, yeah, it really is. Folks, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and I really appreciate all that you've done. And you too, Douglas. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me on.